Do you ever just feel like you're in sort of a rut with your bullet journal? You don't really know where you're going or what you're doing with it. Maybe you're getting frustrated by how your pages look or how they function. I have totally been there, and in this video, I want to help you guys get over that bump. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Riley, and today I want to talk to you guys about some of the mistakes that I have made in my own bullet journaling journey, and they just became huge sources of frustration to me. And there were so many times in my journey where I kind of quit it, or I just put it on the back burner. I totally changed direction and didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of felt aimless with it. But now I feel like I'm in a pretty good place with my journal where it's super functional for me. I enjoy using it as a creative outlet, and it's just become a much more positive experience for me. So I want to share some of those mistakes with you guys. If you guys have questions about bullet journaling, maybe it's about getting started or just getting out of a rut, feel free to drop those down in the comments below, and join me here on my channel by subscribing so that you can get more bullet journaling tips every week. So just for a bit of backstory, my bullet journal journey hasn't actually been super long. I got my first bullet journal in 2019. Well, I got it for Christmas in 2018, but I started using it in 2019. I had that same bullet journal that I used in 2019 until the beginning of this year, because again, like I said, I would kind of pick it up for a while and then put it away and get frustrated with it. So I never actually filled that bullet journal. I just kind of decided to start fresh in 2021. So the mistakes that I'm talking about in this video are mistakes that I made throughout most of 2019 and 2020 that caused me to just move really slowly in that bullet journal because I didn't really enjoy it. So I feel like all of these mistakes kind of stemmed from one major mistake, and that's just not really knowing why you were bullet journaling. I was watching a YouTube video recently by Sarah Therese. I'm going to link her channel up above in case you're interested. She doesn't do anything with bullet journaling. I was watching a minimalism decluttering video, and she said something about how you should make sure that the things that you have in your life are serving you and not the other way around. And I feel like that's so true with your bullet journal. You want to make sure that you're finding a system that really serves you and fills the needs that you need it to fill, instead of you feeling like it's a chore just for you to serve your journal, if you know what I mean. So if you take one thing away from this video, that would be it, is just to remember your why. Come up with a reason why you were journaling before you even start, or if you've already started, sit down and come up with one now, and then make sure that your journal is meeting those needs and that you're not just slaving after this sort of random journaling project. So that's really the first mistake that I made, was just not really choosing spreads and layouts that were functional for me in my lifestyle. But when you start off with bullet journaling, it can be really exciting to go on Pinterest and Instagram and find all these beautiful spreads and then recreate them. And that's exactly what I did. I recreated random budget trackers, mood trackers. What was the other one that I did one time? Oh yeah, a password log, things like that. Things that I just thought looked really pretty on Instagram, but they served no function in my life. I never filled them out, or if I did, I kind of filled them out aimlessly, they didn't really help me. And that's where really knowing your why comes in, because once you know why you're journaling, you can go and make sure that all the spreads that you're choosing really cater to your needs, instead of just being a random compilation of things that you're not going to use. So that was my problem. I didn't come up with my reasons for journaling, but now I have, and that is the solution that I would recommend for you guys. So for myself, I sat down before 2021 started because I knew that I wanted to be intentional with my bullet journal in 2021. I knew that I wanted to share my journey here on YouTube, and I knew that I wanted it to really be a positive thing for myself. So I sat down and brainstormed my why. And what I came up with was threefold. So the first thing that I want my bullet journal to achieve for me is just to help me with planning and productivity. I work from home. I am a full-time bullet journaler, as crazy as it sounds. So planning out my days, my weeks, my months with my content and my different projects, all of that is super important to keep me on track with my work. So that's the first function that my bullet journal serves, is productivity and planning. Second function of my bullet journal is to collect memories. Now, I am a super nostalgic and sentimental person, so I love hanging on to things, keeping receipts, taking pictures of everything. I just love hanging on to all those memories and moments. And that's another thing that I wanted my bullet journal to do for me, was be a place where I could compile all those memories. Finally, the third reason why I decided to get into bullet journaling was for it to be a creative outlet. I know for me, I love doing creative things like making art, but I'm such a go, go, go sort of person that I have a hard time just sitting down and making art just for the fun of it, you know? So something like bullet journaling gives me a purpose for that art. Now I have to sit down and do it because I need to set up my next month, and I really enjoy it, but I need something to make me actually sit down and do it, if that makes sense. So anyways, those are the 3 purposes that my journal serves. It's for planning, collecting memories, and being a creative outlet. And you can see these if you go back to any one of my monthly plan with me videos from 2021, you'll see these things play out. Most of my pages are very intentionally about planning. For example, I have what I call my monthly dashboard with some tasks. I have my calendar where I write down my content calendar on the side, and a weekly focus with that as well. So all of those sorts of things are very much geared towards the planning side. Now, number 2 with the memories, you can see that play out in all of my different 2021 plan with me's as well, because for every single month, I always do a cover page on one side and then a memories page on the other, and that's where I paste in pictures and write down sort of the highlights of the month. I also like to do a monthly reflection in my plan with me spreads, so I'll have some prompts like things that I'm grateful for, things that I'm learning, and that's another way that I collect memories in my journal. So if you are stumped with your journal right now, I'm guessing that this right here is at least part of the problem you're experiencing, that you're not really choosing elements for your journal that will serve you and serve your life. So that's what I would tell you to do, is to go brainstorm maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 functions that you want your journal to serve, and then think about the ways that you can make your yearly spreads reflect that, your monthly spreads, your weekly spreads, your daily boxes. All of the different parts of your journal should reflect the reasons why you are journaling. So the second mistake that I made in my journal, it's really quite tied in with the first, and that was just my journal really lacked like clarity and organization. So like I said, I, like many people, loved to go on Pinterest and Instagram and look at just these gorgeous bullet journal spreads. But what ended up happening is I would see, oh, like a mood tracker that I liked, so I would put that in my journal. And then I would see a future log that I liked, so I'd put that in my journal, like right in the middle of the year. And then a couple months later, I'd see a future log design that I liked better, so I would put a new future log in my journal a few months later in the year. So it was just kind of a mess, you know. I didn't really have like a yearly section where I could just flip to this one spot in my journal and see my whole year at a glance, or monthly sections where I could just flip to this one spot and see that entire month at a glance. So because I didn't really know my why, and I was just kind of picking random things off of Pinterest, my journal ended up being really unorganized and really not functional. The solution to this problem is really pretty much the same solution as I listed for my first problem. I promise they're not all exactly the same, but this one really is, just to figure out your why. But then not only that, sit down and write out maybe 3 to 5 different page ideas that will help you serve that purpose. 3 to 5 yearly pages that will serve your why, 3 to 5 monthly pages. Just write those things down before you even start, so that when it's time to actually go into your journal, everything has its place. Your yearly spreads are here, your January spreads are here, and so on. I think that will really help you. Just being able to find everything and navigate smoothly throughout your journal is going to make it a lot more enjoyable for you. The third mistake that I made was thinking that all of my journal spreads had to already exist, you know, like they had to have been done by someone else. I couldn't just make up something totally new. I had to do something that other people had already done, if you know what I mean. So what I mean more specifically is, like, everywhere that I looked, I saw these beautiful weekly layouts that were set up in advance. So there's a box for Monday, a box for Tuesday, maybe the boxes are tall or short and long, whatever. Either way, whatever I saw online was always just these very pre-made weekly boxes, and I tried using those for months, like throughout 2019, 2020, and even for the first month of 2021. That's what I tried to do, was just using these different weekly spreads that other people had already invented and just sort of plugging in my own doodles, because I didn't really even consider the option that I could totally reinvent the way that weekly spreads worked. So for you, it might not be a problem with copying weekly spreads, it might be something else, but just remember, like, you don't need to do something that's been done before. If there's something that would be super helpful to you, but nobody's ever done it, so what? You can definitely make that a new thing in bullet journaling. And so that was the solution for me, was again, just sort of sitting down and thinking, okay, what do I actually want to get out of my weekly spreads? So once I came up with that, I was able to formulate a kind of weekly layout that I really, really love and really thrive with. So what I always do is, instead of laying out the entire week in advance, at the start of the week, I just lay out what I call my weekly dashboard. So I have a spot for events and I have a spot for tasks, and that's all I set up in advance. Then as the week goes on, I set up like daily spots, daily boxes. I don't really know what to call them, but sometimes they take up like half a page, sometimes a third of a page, sometimes a whole page, depending on how many tasks I have for that day. And I am actually planning on posting a video that will go into more depth on this, but basically what I do is I have the name of the day at the top, and then I have a column for morning, afternoon, and evening, and that's where I can put all the different tasks that I need to complete. Again, like I said, I do work from home, so I've got a lot of random little to-dos. So that's really what works for me, is to, instead of just making a box for each day, I need to leave open lots of space for each day, and then just leave myself columns for the morning, afternoon, and evening so that I can fit all of my tasks in. The fourth mistake that I made was comparing my work to the work of other people. And I feel like, again, this is a super common thing to do. I would always go on Pinterest and I would find, okay, cactus theme. This is what a cactus theme is supposed to look like. And I would try to do the exact same thing, but maybe move the cactuses to this corner instead of that corner so that I wasn't directly copying. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would take things that already existed and it was like, hey, if this is what a cactus theme looks like, that's what it looks like, instead of really defining my own style. So what I started doing this year was I started coming up with ways that I could make my doodles very doable for everyone, but also something that I found really cute and that I liked looking at constantly. So my basic style, even though I don't do this all the time, but I would say one of my trademark things to do is to draw really simple shapes. I'll show you an example of this. Draw really simple shapes and then just add doodles with white gel pen over top that make it so much more exciting. So that's what I do with my jellyfish theme that I've done lots of times before, my hot air balloons theme, even my November plan with me that I'm gonna link right here in case you wanna see it. It's made up of really, really simple shapes and then a bit of white gel pen that makes it look so much more exciting and more complex. And I had never really seen people do that before, but that's something that I started experimenting with this year, was just trying out different sort of art styles and finding my own style for bullet journal doodles instead of copying the doodles that other people had already done. So the fifth and final mistake that I'm going to mention in this video is quite a bit different from the other ones. I feel like the other ones all kind of stemmed from that same thing, not really knowing why I was journaling, but this one really just has to do with physically journaling. So for me, like I said, I got my first bullet journal for Christmas in 2018, and the journal just really was not right for me. I didn't really know much about bullet journals, so I just kind of asked for a cute one that I saw on the shelf, but once I actually started using it, it didn't really work for me. The pages, first of all, were super thin, so anytime that I would draw something like a cover page or a habit tracker, I would want to skip a page so that I didn't have the bleed going both ways, if you know what I mean, because it would always bleed through. So what I ended up doing is I would have one sort of doodled on page, and then on the back of that, I would just use it for a journal entry just with the pencil. So I ended up skipping pages between all of my brightly colored bullet journal pages because those pages were so thin. So normally I say that like supplies, they're not the biggest deal, whether you have the fanciest supplies or you don't. Shouldn't make too much of a difference, but I really do think that having the thin pages in that journal made it a lot less enjoyable for me, because I always felt like I had to skip a page, but then I felt guilty and wasteful, and my designs never looked as good because the lines were getting blurry and soaking through and all of that. So I really needed to find a bullet journal, a physical journal that was better suited to me. So I do have some recommendations for really budget-friendly bullet journals if you're in kind of a similar boat, and my top one that I recommend for a budget-friendly one is from Michaels. It's the Artist Loft brand journals. Now they do offer two different types. One of them is the really thin paper kind, and that's what I got in 2019 or 2018. So you have to be sure to look for the ones that say 120 GSM on the front. Those are the good ones. Those will not soak through, or at least not nearly as much as the other ones. So if you're looking for a budget-friendly journal, I would recommend you head to Michaels, because for me, getting a journal that had thick enough pages where I could just draw freely on every page and not even worry about the bleeding, that made journaling a whole lot more exciting. So those are the 5 bullet journal mistakes that I made in my own journey that I wanted to share with you guys, so that hopefully I can help some of you either get over those mistakes or avoid them altogether. Like I said at the beginning, if you do have other questions or you're currently stuck in a rut and you're trying to figure out how to get out of that, please do chat with me down in the comments below and subscribe to my channel so that I can keep giving you some more bullet journaling tips.